Welcome to Kanugget, the children's podcast of bite-sized stories. Topsy T Rex and the Cello That Wobbled. In the wiggly, wobbly town of Dino Doodle Dell, there lived a bright T-Rex named Topsy T Snell. Topsy was cheerful, as Rexes should be, but he had a strange dream, quite peculiar, you see. "I'll play the cello," he'd holler and shout. "Not a trumpet, kazoo, or a big sauerkraut. I'll make it go zoom, and I'll make it go wee. I'll play the best cello in all history." Now, Topsy's best pal was a bird called Wobblebeak, a pterodactyl so clumsy he tripped on a creek. He juggled ripe mangoes and knitted long socks and wore a big hat with 10 wiggly clocks. "You play a cello?" Wobblebeak cawed. "With those tiny arms, that's really quite odd." But Topsy just smiled, a grin big and wide. "I'll do it," he said, "and you'll sit by my side." So off Topsy went to Madame Flump's music shack, where she sold bouncy tubas and drums that go crack. "I need a fine cello," Topsy declared. Madame Flump laughed, and she even just stared. "A cello for you? With your arms so petite, you'll look like you're wrestling a giant beat." But Topsy persisted, so Madame Flump said, "Take this little cello I use for my bread." The cello was tiny, no bigger than toast, but to Topsy it seemed like the best cello most. He plucked at its strings and he gave it a tap, but his arms were too short. It went plink and then slap. Back in the park, his friends gathered near. There was Wobblebeak juggling an old chandelier, Jellybean the Stego, who wore 7 hats, and Flip-Flop McHopper, a frog in striped pants. "Play us a tune," Jellybean said with a grin. "Make it jazzy and snazzy with a wibbly spin." Topsy tried playing, his tail wiggling fast. But the cello just wobbled, then toppled at last. "You need more than short arms," Flip-Flop declared. "You need a plan, something clever. And so with a wiggle, a wobble, and pop, they hatched up a scheme that just wouldn't stop. They strapped the cello to Wobblebeak's back, while Flip-Flop McHopper gave Topsy a smack. "Your tail is the bow," Jellybean cried. "Wobblebeak will hold it, and I'll be your guide." With the frog on his shoulder and the cello in place, Topsy wiggled his tail at a breakneck pace. And suddenly Topsy, with precision and care, played a cello suite that danced through the air. It was Bach's Cello Suite No. 1, so profound, a melody so lovely, it shook the whole ground. The dinos all froze, their jaws open wide. Even Madame Flump dabbed her ears and smiled with pride. The notes rose and swirled, a dino ballet, as Topsy bowed proudly, his tail on display. When the final chord hummed and the valley was still, the crowd erupted with a deafening thrill. "Encore! Encore!" they bellowed, stopping in time. "Play it again, Topsy, that cello's sublime." So Topsy obliged, his friends all in tow, the cello bow wiggling and stealing the show. And from that day on, in Dino Doodle Dell, Topsy T Snell played Bach oh so well. That's all for today's episode of the Kanugget podcast, the children's podcast with bite-sized stories just for you. And hey, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss a nugget-sized tale. Thanks for listening, friends. Until next time, keep your imaginations big and your hearts even bigger. Bye-bye.